I'm Lisa Lepke from ProWritingAid, and today we're back again with JoEllen Nordstrom. She's our favorite editing expert and the brains behind firstediting.com, which is a editing service that we send a lot of our writers to. It's great. Last week was our first session in our new monthly self-editing school training. Last week we learned a lot about self-editing for readability. So JoEllen, what have you got for us this week, this month?
Today we're going to talk about the comparing software editing to professional editors, and if it's a competition or how to get the most out of both and how to use them in cohesion. So it's pretty cool.
Is it a competition? Is it you and me facing off?
Yo! Death match.
Now, I know the answer to this one. Spoiler, it's not a competition. Can I know this because JoEllen and all of her team all use ProWritingAid. They've got a team set up within our software. And so, spoiler alert, it's not a competition. So just like last month, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to hand it over to JoEllen, but I'll keep an eye on the Q&A box. And once JoEllen goes through what she wants to teach tonight, I'll reappear and we'll go through some of the questions. Okay? So over to you.
Thank you so much. Let me just share my screen here. That way everyone can see what I'm talking about. Do you see it okay there, Lisa?
Yep, perfect.
Awesome, it worked. That's always good. Technology at its best. So we wanted to talk about, we're doing self-editing school, and there are a lot of tools out there, and what's the best way to do it. So you've got self-editing software such as ProWritingAid, and then how does that work when you also compare that to a professional editor? So today we just wanted to, oops, let's see here. Am I going to be able to? Oops, there we go. How to get the most out of both, because again, you're doing your day-to-day, but when you get into professional editing, it is a huge investment. It's probably the largest investment you're going to make in your writing and editing portion there. So you want to make sure that you really get the most money out of it. And I'm going to try to show you how to do that at least quite a bit today and to do that. But before we get started, we always come back to the same questions, which are what are the different types of editing and how do you know which one you need, and how does this play into the software and into professional editing. So first we want to talk about developmental content editing. And this is your high level structural organization type of editing. If you're doing fiction, it's your story edit. If you're doing nonfiction, it's basically looking at how you're addressing your audience. And if you're an academic or research, then it's your substantive editors. And developmental content editing is recommended for even the people who fly by the seat of their pants. They like to call themselves panters. If you're not going to do the structure and organization, then it's definitely worth taking your time to have somebody else go through it to make sure that you are following the status quo in terms of a successfully organized and outlined book, especially if you're doing fiction, because you want to have that story arc following and having your conflict and your resolution at the right time. If you're a planner, this is what you love, and you're going to get to do a lot of the content editing. You can do it in advance using the softwares that are out there, or you can do it in conjunctions with us. And of course, when you want to know, is it any good? This is the time to actually reach out and ask for a content edit, because you want to look at the overall structure, not just is it right. If you're doing a line edit, it's more, your grammar, spelling, punctuation, your organization, your transitions, the voice, but is the actual proposal, the actual idea that you're trying to convey, is it working for you? So the next part after you do that high level, upper level story, content, structural developmental edit is the line editing. And line editing is when you're in the massive amounts of revisions again and again and again. And this is what you're going to do always before you share it publicly. And that is because you get one chance to have a reputation with your book online, and this is it. So before your beta readers, before you share it in any way, before you submit it to your peers for review, in any way, shape, or form, I recommend that you go ahead and get the line edit, because it is important. And people will tell you, oh, of course you need to edit, but they will make comments even though they're acknowledging that. And you just don't want them commenting publicly on any of your writing unless it's the best thing they can comment. And of course, then you have professional copy editing. And this is when ProWritingAid is talking about us, that they're talking about a human editor, because we are the professional editors, and you can it's your final edit before you go into formatting. And if anytime you're using ProWritingAid, you'll notice that you can click to get professional editors now. You just click on the little button that says get a human editor, and then we can take the final look before you go into that before you go into formatting. And of course, what we'll do in conjunction with that is also assess if you need copy editing or one of the other levels of editing. And that would be before we engage. So of course, that's a free sample and a free recommendation. So reach out and you can get a little help there. So how do these come into play? If you've got 3 levels of editing, how do you know which level you're going to be in? Well, you have to look at the purpose of each of these levels, and then you can determine when it's necessary. So if you're doing that developmental, structural content editing, it has a purpose versus line editing versus the copy editing. So those again are at the top, high level, versus the multiple revisions and the voice and the professionalism, to the final, okay, you're good to go. You can launch for the formatting before you come back and get your proofread. So you want to compare your editors and what they can do. And why I point this out is that not all editors can complete all types of editing. Here at First Editing, we have story editors. We're certified. In fact, we're the first enterprise level story coach certification, which means all of our editors have gone through a software training and 38 story elements to learn and make sure that we're covering every single bit of what you need to do to get a structurally sound, organized, and interesting and captivating fiction story, and how to tell your story best. So again, they're trained for that. That doesn't mean that they're trained for the copy edit. We have other people who do the copy editing. We have other people who do the line editing based upon their professional training that they should receive from whoever they're working from. That being said, we've got a lot of freelancers out there in the world. You need to be aware that just because they've written a book or published a book or even become a bestseller, that doesn't necessarily make them certified or capable. Let's just get rid of certified. Let's just say capable of editing your book. So you want to make sure that you get somebody who can do that. This is just a little information. I'm going to include it. This will be available after the webinar, but the developmental and content editors, they are trained on that high level to help you with the substance, to make sure again that your proposal is read there and it's organized in a way. When you're doing that level of editing, you're going to make a lot of changes. It means you might take one chapter and move it back. You might take another whole chapter, you might cut it. You might have to add things. You might have to add references. You might have to add support. You might have to add characters. You might have to add any kind of conflict resolution, whatever's going on there. So again, you need to be aware of what's going on in that terms of the content and development to edit. So you're not going to do a lot of the grammar, spelling, punctuation at this point. We can. I think it's hard for an editor to ignore, but the focus on this level of editing is to make sure that you're structurally sound, you're organized, and you're ready to go into your first or your second or third or fifth major revision. And again, just because you hire a professional editor does not mean you're done. It simply means that you are getting help. You're getting a coach there to get you through everything that you need so that you can be the best you can be as you go out to the world publicly with your writing. So I want to mention that there are content developmental editors and structural editors, story editors for all writing types. And I wanted to include those here because again, there's a little bit different to each of these, and there's some links here you can follow. You've got story editing, that is for your fiction writers, your storytellers out there. And that's very important because again, you're going along the story arc, you're looking at your settings, your characters, your development of different things, versus say, a nonfiction author, which if it is not narrative, then you're going into a totally different structure and you're focusing on your call to action. You're focusing on your demonstrations, your samples of whatever you're going to do to support your thesis or your proposal there. And of course, that is kind of an executive marketing stance there. And it's good to have a book coach when you're doing that. If you go into academic or research of editing, then you're doing more of a substance-based edit. And that is looking at your proposal, making sure that you support it with all the right statements, references, citations, and it's done in the manner which has to be done. Academic English has to be in the right style guide, etc., so that you can proceed with that. So follow along if you want more information there, because I didn't want to just use up the entire night talking about just that. So line editors, again, they're the ones who are doing the professional edit. Normally, when you have a agent or a professor or somebody who says, you need to get this professionally edited, if it's a sound story, that means, or if a sound proposal, it means that you need to make sure that you have a consistent voice, a very natural flow, that everything is used correctly. And it's really good. You're looking at all of your run-on sentences, any words that you overuse, and they want to make sure that you have that professional first impression. So line editors are really important in providing the professional edit that you need before going publicly. And again, don't share until you've done that at least. So again, different line editors who are trained to do line editing. So you want to focus on that. I'm including here again, academic English editing is what you would focus on for an essay or a thesis or dissertation. Scientific editors are much different from fiction editors. So you want to make sure that, oh, I can edit. What do you edit? What are you editing? And then of course, fiction editors. And we again are promoting the certification because we find it so valuable, and whatever tools we're using, you should be using. Professional copy editors are the last ones. They're your last line of defense for the technical review, and they're going to make sure that they catch everything before you take that to formatting, and they are also properly trained. So you have different types of copy editing for fiction and nonfiction. It's your grammar, spelling, punctuation. When you get into academic and research, it's going to be technical according to the style guides and the different journals or submissions that you have to follow there. So that kind of gives you all of the editors and levels of editing. And how do you know which level of editing you're looking for? Well, you're going to look if you're still creating your structure, your outlines, your organization, then we're in that first phase, we're up on that content level, which is your developmental phase. If you're in revisions, again, your revision phase, you are looking for a line editor. If you're in that final review, then you're going to go ahead and get your professional copy edit. And then after you format, and we don't talk about this a lot here, but after you format, that's when you come back for the proofreading. And people use that word interchangeably, but it's not necessarily correct. The proof is your last review, and that's done not because, I mean, of course, there could be mistakes left in there. We're human, and but that is our job to remove all that. However, the proofreading is not for the grammar, spelling, punctuation as much as it is to make sure that when you upload your manuscript, when you upload your document in whatever format you're putting it into, it can structurally change it, and you want to make sure that it doesn't mess up your layout. So I love using this because I'm quite happy that I got to meet one of my favorite authors, Malcolm Gladwell, and I asked him, what advice would you give to authors out there? And he said, rewrite, rewrite, and rewrite your book. It's never done. And that is basically speaking right to what we do here. And that is revising, that is self-editing, that is everything you need to do to create the best story, the best manuscript, the best proposition you can out there. So when we get to self-editing software, how do we use that as a professional editor? How do we make sure that it's working in the way that we need to? Well, the software is so important because it helps you prepare for the editing process if you've never been through that. It teaches you, so you're learning how to become aware of your writing and to be able to pay attention to the details, that when you're writing, you're trying to get your ideas across. But when you're editing, now you're trying to learn all the rules and guidelines and the regulations that you have to fit into. And lastly, you need to understand when you can follow those rules and when you can break them, and understanding that what your editor is looking for helps you to better communicate with them and to better ask and use their talents to the fullest capability. So if you're paying $500, $1,000, $2,000 or $3,000 for an editor, you want to be sure that you can talk the talk with them and get the best return on your investment there. So when you use the self-editing software and the professional editors, you use them together, and they're going to help you evaluate everything that's going on, what your manuscript needs, in the same way that the editor does, but is going to help you self-evaluate, is going to help you discover, how do you keep your readers engaged? How do you make sure that you're speaking to them and not to yourself? Because you can get caught in this bubble, and you want to make sure that you're actually engaging the reader so they could come in and follow you on your journey. And you're going to apply the skills that you learn through the software. The software is there every day, talking to you, pointing out your weaknesses, pointing out your challenges, pointing out when there's repetition, pointing out the again, the grammar, the spelling, the punctuation, the style guides, your voice, how it's being used, all of the flow of different things when you're becoming too wordy, when you're getting stuck, you've got glue words, whatever. So it's teaching you these skills, and it's going to help you in your daily writing. And of course, that helps you become a better writer, which does not happen after one course or a year. It happens over a lifetime. So enjoy the process as you become a master in your craft, and enjoy that, and enjoy learning, because it's really a life-giving one there. And I love to use this graphic here. I've used it before, and we use this when we're out marketing, and we've been doing a lot of promoting as the editing world out there. And what I want to show here is that, you start the writing, but instead of it being linear, where you move from, content editing, or the top level of story editing, developmental structure, and then moving on to line editing, and then moving on to copy editing, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go forward. It's a dance. You can take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you're going to have more ideas. And the great thing is it's like a good coach. They are encouraging you to do your best, and you will learn much about yourself and how you want to use the editor to the best ability, and use the software and the tools that are out there, and they'll spark new ideas, they'll spark new creativity. And they'll also, sometimes you'll realize, I need to get rid of that, and I really liked it. But so use this and understand that you may go back and forth, and doesn't necessarily mean that if you've been through a content edit and then you've moved on to your line edit and you've done all that, when you remove something, you can go back. You don't have to redo it all, but you can definitely reach out for professional help when you need it. And always, always, always use the tools, because again, these are the exact same tools that your editor is using in the background to make sure that they don't miss anything. And then they combine that with their training and their experience in the publishing world to make sure that you get the best story, you get the best proposal and manuscript out there. And again, they are specializing in your genre. So you need to look for somebody who matches your needs specifically, but you can use all of these tools to help you along the way. So really, it's about becoming a strong writer, a strong storyteller. And self-editing is knowledge, and you can gain those skills over time, but it is a process, so enjoy it. The writing tools are there every step of the way. So you have ProWritingAid, you have Fictionary, and you have these different software and tools, and I'll even mention a few more as we go on, that they're helping you. They're these intelligent assistants who are inside working with you day in and day out. And if you don't understand what they're presenting to you, the great thing about using the technology we have is it includes a library where you can kind of click on that and learn more instantly. So you can keep learning, and it does take time. You can study these things for forever, and it's just never done. So professional editors are there before you submit, share, or publish. Anytime you want to put that out there in public, we want to make sure that you have had it professionally edited, at the minimum, a line edit. Ideally, you want to do the structural organization, and that's up to you, what you need, what you want, and how you can process that. So we do have an ebook. It's called Your Editing Journey, and I will include the link here. It's also available right on ProWritingAid. It's available on Kobo. You can download it for free. It just kind of talks about how you combine these editing strategies to create the strong manuscript. This is what it looks like. There's a button there you can click on. So when you are self-editing, you want to know the rules and the guidelines. And one of the great things is to learn the rules and the guidelines is that you're going to focus on the grammar and you're going to focus on the spelling and the punctuation. And the brilliant thing is that the software is going to be there all the time. And the cool thing about the softwares that are using this artificial intelligence is they're tracking you as an individual. So it actually gives you a report, as you've seen here on ProWritingAid, that tells you, you know, you're doing much better, but you're still struggling with your comma. You're still struggling with an apostrophe. And the longer you do this, the more you work with it, then you start to naturally uh, self-edit and to monitor yourself on a very strong high level so that you eventually remove it, and it's great. So you will learn the rules and the guidelines through using these, and it is the self-editing tools and the software that gets you there. And when you know the rules and guidelines, then you can come in knowledgeable about your strengths and your weaknesses, and you can ask the editor to be aware of that, and the editor can go in much more deeply and more thoroughly in the areas that you feel a challenge by. And they can confirm what you need. They can also confirm when you have succeeded and overcome those challenges. So that's a really exciting and fun thing. And again, use those, know the rules and the guidelines. When you are self-editing, you want to learn the basic elements. And that's really important because when you do that, you're looking at how do you outline fiction is a perfect example of this. How do you outline a story arc? When does the conflict come? When does the resolution come? How much do you really need to know the background of your characters? So you need to understand how to outline, and there are fantastic tools out there to do that. So, how do you structure it so that it is appealing to your readers? And the funny thing is, as humans, we love stories. We love that hearing the stories, and we have the sense of what we want and need. There's a desire underneath. So it really does fit almost a template or an outline, and you can match that. Your story's unique, but the struggle and the resolution is all there. And if you make sure that it's properly structured, properly outlined, properly developed, then you will succeed in your self-editing and you will become a better author again. So again, organizing your thoughts, your ideas, your manuscript in a way that works. So it is an editing skill, and a skill can be learned, but you need time. So as you're learning, get help. Use the software skills or the software that's available, use the tools that are available, and reach out to an editor whenever you need it. When you are self-editing, you want to use editing software and the writing tools. As I mentioned, I want to point out a few more here. ProWritingAid, of course, is the grammar checker. It does style editing, and it's software. I love it because it plugs in, it's an extension, it's app, it's in my emails, if I'm filling out a form online, it's telling me to properly punctuate all of my sentences. And that's really good because we use writing so much more today than we have in the past. And as we do that, it's really good to make a professional impression. So if you're texting, if you are emailing, whatever you're doing, make sure that you're using the available tools out there. And ProWritingAid is why we collaborate with them, is because they do it while honoring your privacy. And that's very, very important in this world today. So again, we're inside ProWritingAid and we use it for all of our editors. And of course, you're here probably because you're using it. So that's great. Essay Jack, that's a new one out there, and they're great for academics. They have essay writing templates, and they're a web-based app, and you should check them out, see what they're doing. It's really great. It's good for students. It's good for academics in universities and that. So it really gives you great prompts on how to write, and that's a writing tool that I do recommend when you're in the academia, especially at the very beginning, but it's so well done. It's so well organized. I think you should go ahead and check it out in the university and research levels, especially if English isn't your first language and you may be struggling with how to adjust that. We also have Storyteller, which is from Fictionary, and this is for fiction. This is the step before you hire a story coach. You don't have to, but it's definitely what we use. And this is how you edit your story for your novels. And it's an online software. It's available. If you choose to go ahead and use this as your story coach, you get access to that for free. But it's fantastic. You should check it out, test it. It lays out your story arc immediately so you can see where you are in that process and make sure you're following the guidelines in the industry today. Another one that's new out there that I'd like to mention is One Stop for Authors. And this is for storytellers also, so our fiction writers. They have writing tools that are super intense and super helpful in creating your story, in developing your characters, and they have these templates and fill in the blank, and then it organizes all together. It's using fantastic technology and AI to help you develop a background that really enhances and creates a fantastic world for your story. And so check that out. These again, and all of these integrate and work well with ProWritingAid. So it's just fantastic. And it, of course, our editors are aware of all these, and we do like what they're doing. So everything contributes to becoming a better editor. So I do think that you should check those out and try that. When you're self-editing, you want to accept the process, and everything is a process. And the process means that you're going to revise after your content editing, which means you have to do more work. You're not done. You're going to revise again after line editing. There's absolutely no accept all button in ProWritingAid, and we love that about this software because, again, you need to take personal responsibility for what you've written there. And if the editor changes something that doesn't necessarily agree with your thoughts, you need to be aware of that. So check every single change, every single advice that you receive, and make sure that you're being conscious and aware of the changes and the editing that's happening. And as you use these softwares, you get stronger. So you're going to be able to do that. You're going to review after the copy editing also. And of course, this is all part of the journey. So check out the ebook. It's there, editing journey. You can carry on with that. When you are self-editing, you also want to get help. So the help is the software and the tools. So it's whenever you need it, it's right there. And of course, whenever you think you need a professional editor, it's just reach out and find out if you can get yourself on the right path. When you want support, you want advice, again, turn to the softwares, turn to the editors, and use them together and in conjunction. If you reach out to an editor who is not aware of these tools, they may not be the best editor for you because they're not familiar with your process. And so in the same way you want to test them for their genre, their experience, their background, their success, you also want to make sure that they're using the same, you're in the same world when you're working together. And remember to always take a break. That is part of the editing process also, is the downtime, to let it all filter through your brain so that you are ready to do the self-editing and then go ahead to the next level and do the professional editing on your journey. So ProWritingAid, the self-editing software, one of many out there, but definitely our preferred one. It helps writers and it helps editors. So regardless of where you are, you may be a writer today, you may be a part-time editor, or you may be a full-time editor, but I guarantee you, regardless of where you are, it's going to help you. So try it out. You have the grammar checker style. It's making sure that all of that's cohesive. It's going to be your little writing mentor. It's constantly poking you on the back saying, here you go. Did you check that out? Maybe you want to reconsider using passive tense there because that's not highly recommended. So you can look at it again and again, and they're constantly there wherever you are, wherever you're typing, and it's available. And that's a fantastic opportunity. We use it as our professional editing tool because it's a software, it's a tool, an extension, a plugin, it's all available, and it integrates with every single tool that I've talked about tonight. So that's really, really great. And it's going to give you these fantastic reports, and you can set that up automatically. And anytime you are tired, fed up, or completely done in your self-editing, and you're ready to find the professional help that you need, you are one click away. You just click the button that's inside ProWritingAid, and you will be provided with a human editor, which would be one of our editors here. Or you, of course, you can go out and look in the world and just find someone that matches what you need, because it is kind of a matchmaking situation. I think that editors and writers really need to have communication. It doesn't mean that you need to sit here and have this talk for a long period of time. It doesn't mean that it entails a lot of consultation. What it does mean is that you're clearly communicating in an agreed upon manner that allows you to better understand and grow as a writer. So when you have the professional recommendations coming through, the advice that they're giving to you in a formatted software such as Fictionary, or you're using the same reports and you're looking for the same considerations in your writing because of your ProWritingAid, it allows you to better communicate and better understand, especially when the professional editor is going to provide you with a summary letter of everything they've done. And make sure that you ask, professional editors need to tell you. So again, it is an investment, so get your best price, hire trained editors who can do the work for you, and always, always, always use the writing tools because they're there to help you every step of the way. You want to self-edit first every single time. So because it is first you must edit. That's kind of our name, first editing, then you can publish. Don't publish before you've edited. It's a disaster and it's really hard to fix after that. Not impossible, but make sure that you are saving your reputation and doing everything that you can to create a successful manuscript, a successful story, a successful career, and fulfill those dreams of becoming an author. Recognize you're going to revise again and again and again, whichever process you do, and with both software and with the professional editors. So it's first editing and then publishing that you're looking at and what you're doing there. There's a little bit more on here, and I can let you take a look at that, but I can also take some questions and answers, and we can talk about that more if Lisa's here.
I'm here.
Yay!
Yeah.
If not, I have more slides. I will just keep going. So let me stop sharing. In my formal world, I was an auctioneer, so I can just talk. I can talk fast forever. Now I type fast.
Your history. Okay, great. I was just trying to help someone. Someone was struggling getting onto the first editing.com website, but hopefully it's working now.
Okay, that would be important. If not, I'll just be right back.
I checked it and it's working for me, so hopefully something on their end. A couple of people have asked about slides, so we'll include a link to the slides in the replay email tomorrow, and there'll be a replay on both on our YouTube channel and on the webinars page of our website. Okay, so we've got lots of questions here. Some of them came a little bit earlier, so we may have answered them again, but so if anybody else has any more questions, pop them into the Q&A box rather than the chat, and we'll have a look. So one question is, do you choose an editor from first editing if they work with you, or is one allocated to you?
What we propose is that you actually experience a bit of the editing process before you commit, before you put any money out there. And what we've done, and I think it's just the way I am, I always want to see it. If you're getting a service, it's so much different from a product. A product, you can touch it, feel it, see it, or get it. But a service is so much more dependent upon the individual. So when you submit your document to us for a sample, basically it is assigned to an editor who is especially trained in the genre that you are, has experience in the same type of writing that you're doing. So if you're, say, doing erotica or Christian writing or children's books, whatever it may be, or you're doing an academic, we want to make sure that you have a subject matter expert or a PhD who has that hard science or soft science background. And then what they do is they take your document, they review it all, and they send it back to you with a sample that includes their recommendation, which means they look at it and say, look, you're really at this level of writing, and you need this. You may think or want you lower or higher, whatever it may be, but they're going to tell you what you absolutely first need. And then they're going to answer any questions. So if you're asking for more than that, then they're going to tell you how that's going to work so you understand what you're doing there. And if you can also understand the price quotes and why it's based upon those different areas and how fast we're going to deliver it. So you can choose. We do have some of our editors up on the website. You can look through those. If for some reason you were to get a sample from us that didn't really match, I always recommend go ahead and try another one. It doesn't cause, there's no skin off your back. And so give us a try or two. And if you don't find it there, then of course there are other places out there that have directories. And if you're a shopper who likes to compare, then welcome to Google. You're going to have a great time and they're all there. The advantage would be if you hire a company is that it comes with a satisfaction guarantee if something happens, and we also make sure that we follow our deadlines. So if you're on a tight deadline to an agent and you need to get that back fast, we can accommodate that. And if there's something should happen in that editor's personal life, I mean, I don't know, COVID or something, then we have other people helping to make sure that there's no delay, and we just keep you informed. So that's always good.
Okay, good. So it's a matchmaking service, really. You want to find the right person.
Yeah. We want to make sure that you're happy. And then also, of course, one of the advantages is you have a client manager who is answering all your questions and making sure that, it's getting answered in a timely manner from your editor, and that is clearly understood, and making sure that you are comfortable and happy from step one to the end till you go to the next part, which is publishing.
Okay.
Marketing.
So there's an interesting question here from Maureen. I know you talk a lot about the benefits and drawbacks to using a freelance editor. So she says, I hired a professional editor who can't review my book until August. There's a contract and a deposit required. I've been doing AutoCrit and ProWritingAid in advance, and then we'll use Fictionary and beta readers before she receives it. Does this feel like the right sort of procedure?
The overall process, or I mean, I guess you can't answer for her, but it sounds, I mean, to use a whole line of professionals is always advanced, including beta readers, and in using more fresh eyes that are trained in whatever task they're doing, as long as they're trained in that task that they're performing, I do think that's okay. If you're in love with that editor and you have the time and can wait, then, of course you can do that. If you are eager to get started earlier, then you can get on that process and it can be faster. When you're using freelancers, they're only one person. So they have a limited time and energy that they can provide. And they're either busy or looking for the next client. It's hard for me to relate on that because we basically have a conveyor belt that we're able to do. And when we need more editors, we have them in the background and we're able to bring them in. So I think, choose what you feel comfortable with. If you really like that person, then stay with them. If you have some doubts, then you have the time to go ahead and test some other editors. You can send us a sample and we'll be glad to give you some feedback.
Okay, great. I mean, in some ways, I feel like I would work well in that structure because knowing that I had until August would give me a deadline and get me sort of working and I could plan it all out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a planner, so it depends whether you're deadline orientated. I like to know exactly where I'm at in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think I would find it useful knowing that I've got, because the problem with editing is it can just go on forever or not, and it can just be a bit like bleh. And so that would work for me to have a deadline. So hopefully it works for you too, Marie.
Yeah, I mean, it's just finding out what you need. So if you need it faster, then move along. But make sure that you get if you're putting up a deposit in that, make sure that you're safe in that you can. The world is so unpredictable nowadays. I'm a big fan of American Express. Give me my money back.
Career basis, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple questions about cost and about the different kinds of editing. Do you pay for each level separately, or is it all part of the overall process? And how does the costing work on those different levels?
Sure.
It's a lot in there, but
it's a valid question because it's part of the nation. We have content editors who do content editing, line editors, also copy editors also. So each one is specialized in that type of editing. Ideally, in the best world, you want to use the tools that can fulfill each of those phases correctly. And I think so that's when you're doing a content edit or a story edit, say you have a novel, then you want to go to a certified story coach who can walk you through that process. Then you have time to do the revisions, and you can, that does cover a lot of the line editing, but it depends how much you change it. So in an ideal world, you're going to be able to come back and you're going to get a different editor to do that type of editing. And then, even a copy edit can be a different editor for the copy editing. That being said, depending upon your strengths, your experience, your self-editing skills, the proper use of the tools that you have, you may not need to go as deep into each of those phases as possible. So if you are using Storyteller, which is the writer's version of the software for writing books in fiction, then if you feel really solid and you're getting great reports from that, then you can send it over to us. And if we say, yeah, you're ready for or for line editing, then we can just skip that and go into it. And that is probably the best example of why to use a software, because it allows you to save money and energy. You don't have to evaluate and invest again and again and again, and it will get expensive if you do. So the smaller investment of month subscription is your best investment in the long run, because you will learn. Now, maybe the first book you need to go through it all, but your second, third, it'll be much easier. The prices are, of course, they are equal to the level of editing. A content edit, a high level story edit, where you're going to get back anywhere from a 20 to 50 page summary letter, plus use of all the software and an evaluation, plus all of the feedback and advice inside of it. And then you're going to have the revision, and you should have a consultation afterwards to, about 60 days afterwards, to go through everything that's done. And you've done that. That's more costly than the others, but it's still, because of the technology and because the way that we're working with that company, it's highly affordable. So you're looking at 3 to 4 cents per word. And I know that independent freelancers have to charge more just to stay above the water, because the amount of time and certification is not cheap, and it's a big investment in their lives too. So line editing is 1 to 2 cents per word, and copy editing sits around 1 to 1.5 cents per word. So those vary. But of course, if you get into academics, it's much higher, because you have to have a PhD and all these different things. So it's relative, but best way, send us your document. We'll take a look. We'll tell you what we think you need. And then, of course, or you can just get an instant price quote based upon the parameters, which is, how big it is, how soon you need it, and what level of editing you think you need and that you want.
Great. I think it says Christian. I can only see part of your name. I think it's Christian. Says, why do you suggest using a structural editor before a beta reader, as opposed to the other way around? Good question.
Because, well, beta readers may help you with your ideas, but a structural edit, especially if we're talking about a fiction novel here, is you're going to use the software. You're going to use those 38 story elements that we're currently, if you're not watching now, you can check it out. We have it on publishingpower.com. And we're also doing on YouTube with Christina Stanley from Fictionary, covering the 38 story elements that we go through. And a beta reader is looking at it from more of a, it's still subjective, and those who are trained will do it well, but they may not be looking at the small details. That's why we're using that software. It forces us to leave nothing unturned. It forces us to review it. And then once you have that, you can see how strong it is in, do you like it? And what they might have suggested. But the software and the techniques that we're using they're objective. Whereas a beta reader's reception of your book may be more subjective, if that answers it. Oh, I lost you. You're
Sorry,
unmuted.
I'm still here.
There you go.
Thank you for that. So Bob says you say send a sample to get a start and feel for compatibility with an editor. What is that? Is that a chapter, 3 chapters, a whole manuscript? What should we send in your direction?
Right now, we want to make sure that you're actually ready for editing. So send us the whole manuscript. If you have a problem with that, you can always reach out to Kathy or one of our other administrators. They'll talk you through. But for your best return, you're going to send us the whole document so we can kind of scan through that and take a look. Make sure that you are explicit in your directions or your questions area. There's a comment section that kind of tells us, what do you think you need? What are your challenges? What do you want? If you're looking for a specific level of editing, if you're saying, I heard about the story editing, I really, really want to have that, then let us show you not just what the editor will do in a content edit, but why they would use the story edit or the story coach editing. And are you ready for it? Because not everybody can have a story coach edit. They can't have a story edit with the software that we're using if they're struggling with some of the other writing skills that, make sure that we can get it to level so we can look at the content versus the other structural things that may be happening there. But send us the full document. That way we can scan through and take a look. We're not going to go super deep, but we're going to send you back a page or two. And just basically, that's part of the dating. It lets you meet the editor
Going
and
for
feel,
dinner.
Yeah, it's just, it's stopping for coffee. It's more
Meeting
coffee.
for coffee.
It's not even, we're not even at dinner yet. We're just having a coffee, and either of us can walk away and be okay with it. And we had a nice time.
Okay, great. So I've got a question from Jim. He uses story editor within Fictionary. And is wondering if you think it's necessary to check all the boxes, like make sure you've got tension and conflict and taste and smell and touch and all of those sorts of things. Do you need to go that deep into it?
Sure. You do not have to fill in all the blanks. You do not. But they are there to make sure that you're not overlooking it. If and it's just when we go through and we edit, we are basically, if you don't need to have it fully done, but we may just put a little check in there. Okay, that's good. You got that. And that's kind of us just acknowledging that we've considered it and we've done it and there's no issue there. You might want to do that yourself if that makes you feel better, because I really hate empty boxes. It's like, I didn't do all my work. And I think that's part of being an editor is you feel like, I have to do it. So as a writer, if you're using these tools, then make a little check. Just put a little check. And so then you can say, I'm done with that and I can move on. Or you say, I'm not really sure. That's a great thing to do, because then when your editor gets it, they can come in and see where you want help, and it goes much faster for you to get the resolve that you need, and you can get a bigger, better answer.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I always think you probably, not every writer uses every ProWritingAid report as well. You choose the thing, what you're good at, where maybe you need work. If you're exceptional at writing characters, but your settings sometimes are a bit lacking, then it's a good way to give you the bite-sized chunks. I always talk about breaking editing down into non-scary, small, doable bits and pieces, and that's a good way to do it. And sometimes you don't even really know what you don't do. You don't realize that you only ever use visual senses and you don't put smell into your book, and smell is so powerful.
Yeah.
And so it's just a little reminder, have you done this? And actually I haven't. Or she was talking about weather the other day, that adding some good weather to a scene, imagining someone walking through the woods and the sun is shining is such a different feeling from walking through the woods and there's a storm going on, or there's a fog or whatever. It's just such almost an easy, cheaty way to create some atmosphere in what you're doing. So I just always think of it as just double check this, make sure you're doing this. How about this? Have you done this? And if you don't feel like you have to do them all, but think of it as nudges, just to make sure you covered all your bases.
I always explain this to my editors as this is kind of your pilot checklist. So you're going through to make sure that you're safely covering all the necessary elements, and you're making sure that you don't take off before you're ready. And I think that's a really good example for the author too, is, use a check or whatever it if the empty boxes bother you, make a little check. But other than that, it's just your friendly reminder to not overlook potential there. using it it's an advantage. It's not a requirement. It shouldn't be painful. It should be, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. Percolating coffee in the morning makes me think grandma. So what does that do for you?
Yeah.
And that means my character has a different meaning to me than it may mean to you. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think so too. Can you talk a little bit about? I've lost the. Sorry, there's so many questions here now, so we're not going to get through them all. I'm trying to focus on the questions that I think will have the widest reach for the most people.
Okay.
I want to talk about the process of when somebody asked about when you get your changes back from your editor. What's the best process for making those changes? Should you read it all through, go through it one at a time? Do you have any tips on how to make those work?
Sure. And I am going to, again, you're going to get different feedback on during the different levels of editing and different expectations, because a copy editor is not going to give you any recommendations, they may explain a rule or regulation to you, but they're not going to make suggestions on changing your story line or your overall presentation, whereas a line editor is going to look at your voice and your presentation skills and your support of your statements there to make sure that you're doing that. So they're going to be way more helpful and engaged in that than a copy editor. And then the highest level is your content editing, your story editing, your developmental structural editors, which should come with a nice, juicy summary letter that tells you, kind of a review of, this is what I found fascinating. This is what I found uncertain. I wasn't really sure what you meant here, but I think you're going this way. And if that's correct, I suggest this solution. And if not, please, fix it, because maybe sometimes, ironically, the editor has questions that they can, so you're going to go back and forth with them. And again, hopefully you've got arranged a consultation. So the best way to go through that is to read the attached summary letter first, if that comes through. And then if you are fortunate, if you're doing in fiction, then you're going to be going right into the storyteller software, and you're going to have access to that for 2 weeks. So you're going to be able to go through. And the great thing about this software is that when we're using track changes, your comments don't always line up. You've got this random thing going on over here, and you got your text here, and you're like, this comment, I had so many comments that it's down on the next page, and I have to cross-reference. Whereas when you're on a page-by-page view, your comments are right next to that page. And so that it stays attached to the page, and you don't see a comment that isn't on that page. So that's really fun for the using of the software and getting familiar with that. And do all the revisions, do all the corrections, come back a little bit later. Sometimes you're going to see things. It's much like ProWritingAid. There's a much more validation for the changes, because if you read the rules, this is why, this is what we're questioning, blah, blah, blah. Take a little break and then come back for your consultation or write your letter to the editor. But always give yourself, don't do it all at once. Some people are very intense, and you can, but most people need to take a break somewhere in between.
If you just had to say, these are the 2 or 3 things that editing software is great at that humans can't do, and these are the 3 things that humans are great at that editing software can't do, what would you say? What are the high levels? It's quiz.
Yeah, I was like, I'm tired. I think the software is very good at the rules and the regulations. It's making sure that you're consistent, and consistency is super important, and it can compare your writing to other people in the same genre. It's learning from other texts. It's taking all that information, is comparing. So that consistency and the ability to use an algorithm to determine if you are doing it correctly is a super advantage. So you've got more than one person's knowledge on every single correction. You've got literally millions of people and years all in that one time. That being said, it does get it wrong. So sometimes the human goes, I don't know why it's saying that's okay, but that's really strange. And it's just, you would never date a computer because of that. So that's why you do that. So, the consistency and the massive amount to cover the rules is definitely what I think is one of the best and most valuable works there, to learn the style over the time and to mentor you again and again. I love having the library of information so I can better understand. I can learn every single day, and they're available 24/7, and nobody's irritated or tired. So that's really, really, really helpful. As human editors, I think their advantage is that, they can still look at it from the human heart. And they also are going to give you occasionally a pep talk, and sometimes, the honest feedback that you may need, you may not want, but you definitely need. And that's why you don't go to your mom or your brother or somebody else to edit it. You need to have somebody who has, edited and published and worked in your genre, in your field for many, many years, to give you that type of credible and trained feedback and advice. And I think what you want is advice. You want to know what the next step is. The software will tell you what to do, but they won't tell you why necessarily. And that comes from knowing what your purpose is. And if your purpose should always be based upon your readers. So who are you trying to engage? How are you trying to engage them? And based upon what? When you discuss this with an author or an editor, they can evaluate that and then keep that focus there, which is, that's not a sight, sound, or smell. That's an emotional attachment, a curiosity, and techniques, skills over time that are used in different ways. I didn't get 3 and 3, but I think I did.
That's fine. Yeah. No, because there's a few questions here saying if you edit really, really hard with ProWritingAid and put all the time in and really self-edit, do you still need a professional editor? And I am, it's not a yes or no question. I mean, if you can't afford a professional editor, then putting all the time in and really doing a thorough self-editor or self-edit will take you a long way. If you can, take it to the next stage, it's still worth doing a really thorough self-edit and then going to a professional editor just who has fresh eyes, who can see, the things that you've been so deep inside of for such a long time. We've had a question that's just come in saying that they thought that an agent would arrange all of the detailed editing before going to a publisher. And maybe
used to be
a long time ago that was the case, but it's just not anymore. There's I would say before you submit anything to an agent, to anyone, make sure that you have done the editing work. And if you can't afford a professional editor, then do it yourself. But if you can get somebody to come in with a fresh set of eyes and a professional set of eyes that has that skill set, I would definitely say do that.
Exactly. And if it needs additional editing for whatever genre or whatever marketing they have planned for you, which is an important part of the being an author, people don't talk about. It's all about marketing. It's all about launching. It's all about building your audience and having your people out there. And, some agents won't consider you if you don't have, and I'm sure that number's moving, but 10,000 followers and you don't have a built-in, because it makes their job easier. And it's not that they're getting more lazy. It's because there's getting so much more competition now. There's so much, while we're speaking, there are literally millions of people typing. Millions of people.
Which is great. Which is great.
Great. But at the same point, they all want to be published or they all want to do something. And so it's just, and I don't want to say it's noise, but it's just a higher level of demand that you have to step up. You can't just have a great idea and then have somebody help you get there. That's why ProWritingAid was created. That's why Fictionary Storyteller and Story Coach is there, because it forces you to cover all of those fine details first. And then once you get in the door, then you can talk about, retainers and extra editing and whatever it's going to be. And they will probably still edit. I have many professional authors who have, signed contracts, and they still do their own editing because it is their reputation on the line. And they know that there are other people. And if they don't perform right, if it's not prepared to the best ability, there's no guarantee the next one's going to be published. There's no guarantee.
Well, and I always say that, I almost always end our chats just by saying that I just think editing is a creative exercise,
Mm.
especially the early content editing. That's where a lot of the magic happens, is in the edit, when you go back and you look at specific scenes and you really dig deep into how to make it resonate with your reader, and to make the scene, to add the weather to the scene, and to make sure to add, quirks for your characters, and all of those things that you might not do when you're just trying to get through your first draft. When you go back and you've got a bit more time and you can think really creatively, I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff there. Some of you, I think, were here the other day when we were talking to Mary Adkins, and she said that she thought probably 25% of her first draft ended up, well, in her first book, she said probably 25% of what she had written in her first draft ended up in her published book. By the time she got to her second, she was much better, and she had learned so much. And on her first book, she went through 9 major editing rounds. Her second book, she only required sort of 1.5 major editing rounds, because she had learned so much in that whole first process and didn't make a lot of the same mistakes, and so really enjoyed the editing process and figured out how to do it. So that's have a look on our YouTube channel. The session with Mary Atkins was really good from a really practical level in terms of how to get a good editing journey and roadmap in place.
Exactly. And, some people can self-edit and they can become successfully published. That's the truth. But not everyone who's successfully published has been able to self-edit. So it is a skill developed over time, and take your time to do that, but invest in the upfront, and it gets easier in the long term, because you get rid of those bad habits that are so hard to eliminate.
Yeah, and if you don't go through that process of learning those bad habits and editing them, then
they stay.
The second time around, you'll just make all the same mistakes.
Exactly. And it costs again and again and again.
Exactly. All right, that is it for this month. That was quick. So, can you remember what the topic is for next month? I don't know off the top of my head.
Don't have it in front of me. Sorry.
It'll be great. It'll be more self-editing skills, and you'll come away with lots of good technique and craft. And we'll see you again next month. Thanks, JoEllen.
Thank you. Have a great night. Bye-bye. Bye.